guys, my back has been against the wall with this one. But I just had someone to, message me on Messenger, and my heart goes out because I'm a woman. I'll be 40 next month. And so I have got to talk about this. When I first started my fitness journey, I think I was about 35 or 36, somewhere in there. And if I may add, because I wasn't very long recovering from my drug addiction, I think it's fair to say that I kind of somewhat had a natural high off of life. I was finally in the real world. Taking on my fitness journey, it was new. I felt energetic and it was just, I felt fine. I also began to notice between the age 37 and 38 that my sex drive had became really, really strong. But at the time, most of y'all know my backstory. My husband was suffering from health conditions that was affecting his manhood. And I can talk about that now because I promise it's all fixed. Everything is definitely good now. But at the time, it made me really sad and it caused a little bit of friction in our marriage. But I just, channeled it all toward the gym and working out and toward what was then my new lifestyle. It's my lifestyle now. Okay, so fast forward a little bit. Eventually my husband slowly caught on, slowly started losing weight. He wasn't exercising or in the gym like he has been recently, but he was losing weight over time. Now, mind you, everything didn't happen overnight, and in fact, I had really gave up. I don't know how he felt at the time, but he just kept moving forward with trying to get his health under control and losing weight. And you have to bear in mind, I had learned to desensitize myself to that part of our marriage. And far as I could tell, he did too. I had literally told myself that my husband was 19 years older than me and it was to be expected, so I just gave up. And I think we both just kind of tried to block it out. I would literally pray about it, but I never expected anything to change. And in all honesty, I really had thought that maybe diabetes had, the nerve endings had died and just things were never going to be right again. And y'all should be able to understand what I'm talking about. But now fast forward, okay? If a lot of you remember, I think it was last year in September when I had hammer toe surgery. When I was walking around and still in the gym, hopping around on those big, dumb, ugly, black surgical sandal-looking shoes. What are the odds that during my recovery, out of nowhere, one day my husband everything just slowly but kind of quickly just picked back up. At first, I was really excited and it was just like, I felt alive again, but it was strange, but it was like we were dating all over again. Everything was just like, and now mind you, my tubes are not tied or anything. And every year when I go to see my gynecologist, each year he would ask me about birth control pills. I'm like, I don't need them. Doctor, my husband's 19 years older than me. He has a lot of health issues. There is no reason for me to be putting this stuff inside of my body because I don't need them. Well, that changed. Now I am back on birth control pills because I don't want my tubes tied, but I'm back on birth control pills. But over time, I began to notice probably about 7 months ago, give or take, maybe 8 months, give or take, 7, I don't know, somewhere in there that things were just kind of somewhat starting to change. I love the gym, and because I have made such a name for myself on social media, I can't just stop. Not that I ever would. I even began to notice just a little bit of a decline in my sex drive. And to be honest, let me just put it to y'all like this. I'm like, what the hell? My husband is 58 years old and they're 57 or 58. He's gonna kill me because sometimes I forget. To me, he is like forever young. But anyway, I'm like, there ain't no way you can round that off to 60. I'm gonna let my 60-year-old husband run circles around me in the bedroom, right? So this year I went to my gynecologist just for a regular, annual. It was in January of this year. And the nurse was just asking me, questions that she's supposed to ask, like any vaginal dryness, different things like that. And, there's some of the answers to those questions just kind of like, made them think, well, hey, let's run some tests on your hormone. I also saw a lot of signs in my doctor's office that was like BioT, testosterone, just different things. And I just, I was curious and thinking like testosterone, what in the world? Like, this is a women's clinic. So I began to inquire about some of those things because I've had clients that were like premenopausal and menopause and things like that. And they would tell me that they felt better once they had hormone replacement therapy. Like, they would gain a few pounds from their initial, hormone shot. The testosterone shot or the cream. And, they would gain a few pounds maybe the first week. And then after that, they would, the weight would start back falling off. They felt more energetic. They were able to do the things that that they needed to do to reach their goals. I've also always read about, women needing a little bit of testosterone as they get older and estrogen. And I hate to try to pronounce this progesterone or progesterone, something like that. But anyway, fast forward. They, did my labs and everything like that. And here is a screenshot of my lab. Would you believe that I didn't have any testosterone? None. I'm just going to be straight up. And I mean, it's crazy for this to come out of my mouth. And even my husband says, I have fairly decent genetics, or either that or one hell of a work ethic, because I don't know how long, I've been running like that, and been able to build this amount of muscle and lose weight and things like that. But to say the least, I could tell at age 39 that, my energy had declined. I still went to the gym. I was going to go regardless. I am just glad that I started at the age that I did, which I was still old. I wasn't like some little, I wasn't a spring chicken when I started. And where there's a will, there's a way. You set your mind to it. You can do it at any age without hormone replacement therapy. But let me tell you, it is a nice accessory to have, to say the least. Let me go ahead and let y'all know. Yes, I went with hormone replacement therapy. You can do that in one of three ways. You can do the shot, you can do the cream, or you can do what's called Biotee pellets. I went with Biotee pellets, which is where they put a little implant, like a pellet. It's really tiny inside of your butt. It's like a minor surgical procedure. Some women may know about this. In my area, it's not, as popular as it probably is in bigger places. And I'm just going to go ahead and tell you right now I have Blue Cross and Blue Shield, but insurance doesn't cover it, and it is expensive. But insurance will cover, if I'm not mistaken, the shots and the cream. February the 10th is when I had my pellets implanted. My doctor told me that as long as I continued to take my birth control every day, that my estrogen was good and everything else tested good. I didn't have any testosterone. I'm just going to say that so far so good. It has been life-changing. One of my biggest fears was I already have thin hair. It runs in my family, especially on my mom's side. And so with that being said, my doctor also does peptides. He's an OB-GYN, and I guess all too often, sometimes when women have babies, they, gain weight. So he does like semaglutide and all that stuff. And a lot of the women are doing that. And when they do, they lose a lot of muscle mass after losing a significant amount of weight on weight loss drugs, because most people are not going to work out. Most people are not going to change their diet. And so, he came up with being able to help women maintain lean muscle mass while losing the weight. And it kind of just gives you everything you need to put a little bit more pep into your step. But considering that my diet and everything has been good for 3 years or longer, and I've been, in the gym on my journey for a while, I decided to do the hormone replacement therapy and peptides. At first, my husband tried to talk me out of it, which that's another story coming later. But now he is definitely a fan, and I'm so thankful. But again, there can be a lot of unwanted side effects with some of this stuff, especially hormone replacement therapy. So you want to do your own research, perhaps talk to a doctor if you're experiencing, premenopausal or just any type of hormonal changes. I honestly feel like this stuff is going to add years onto my life. And if you have a good doctor, or if you can find a good doctor, I would at least recommend, speaking with them about it.